So, how much life insurance do you actually need? And how much should you look to spend out of your budget per year on this life insurance? Well, hello, darlings. Let's talk about these questions. Now, in order to talk about the answer to the first question of how much life insurance you actually need, let's use something called the DIME method. That's D-I-M-E. And that's an acronym, and it stands for D, debts, I, income, M, mortgage, and E, education. So let's look at how that works. Your debt category will include things such as your credit card debt, your medical debt, any student loans or auto loans. Now remember, we're going to leave the mortgage out of this right now because it has its own category. But what do you currently have that you owe, or outstanding balances that you have, okay? But let's not forget another category in debts. That is our final preparation category. You know, each of us will have a day when tomorrow no longer comes. And we have to account for the cost of those final preparations. That is included in what we call final expenses. So how much will that cost for us? They say to be safe, you should account for $7,000 to $10,000 on top of the other debts that you have. Okay? But let's go a step further. What do you want as far as your final preparations? Do you want a large funeral? Do you want to simply be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Each of those things has a cost, and we should really know those costs. So find out what they cost now and add a little bit for inflation, and then add that to the debt category, and your debt category should be successfully covered. Okay? Now let's move over to income. Income has to do with your earnings that could be taxable. So we're talking about things such as salary or wages, and wages are a bit different. They are typically paid at the end of a week for what work that you've done during that week. But let's look at also tips and anything that you might make as far as any businesses that you have. And remember, these things can be taxable. But we're going to look at also the gross versus the net. Now remember, gross is your total earnings before deductions and taxes, okay? And your net is what you actually get to keep and bring home. So if you're thinking in terms of gross as the big wide ocean, the net is what the fisherman actually reels in, okay? So when we're looking at things, we want to do two different values. One for salary and one for overall income. So they say that you should have at least 10 times your annual salary in life insurance. But then if you're looking at overall income, they say that if you're between the ages of 18 and 40, you need at least 30 times your annual income. Now that's because of the number of years that you probably expect to continue earning. Okay. But then we also want to look at 41 to 50, which would be 20 times your annual income. 51 to 60, 15 times your annual income, and 61 to 65, 10 times your annual income. So figure out which one works best for you, and that's what you want to account for with your income. Now let's move to mortgage. Of course, it is a debt, but it is also a large enough debt to have a category of its own, because people forget that sometimes the main breadwinner is now gone. So what do? If the main breadwinner has accounted for that time in a life insurance policy, then you know what? It can literally make the difference between someone being able to remain in that home and being out on the street. Okay, so let's not forget that. Now let's move to the final category, which is education. Well, do you want to send anyone to school? Any kind of school. Does a tuition become involved? Is this college? Is this trade school? Or is this just coursework and licensure, such as in life insurance? You can plan for that now. Now take the columns D-I-M-E and those values, add them up, and then subtract what you get for things such as current life insurance policies that you may have, or savings accounts, any other retirement vehicles, and even anyone else's income. So what you get in the dime category minus any current, savings, etc., that you may have and life insurance that you may have, subtract that value from dime, and you should get a true value of what you need in life insurance. Now, I recognize that everybody's budget doesn't support that, but you do the best you can. But how much should you look to spend out of your overall annual income? They say at least 6%, okay? So now you also want to add 1% for each dependent. So if someone makes $35,000 a year, 6% of that is $2,100. And then you divide that by 12 for each month, and you get a value of $175 that they can look to spend for life insurance. What does it look like for you?